So we're also seeing mixed feelings on rules surrounding remote work. For example, in the UK, there's a discussion about possible legislation that would make remote work the default. Meanwhile, there are calls for rules in other markets that would allow workers to switch off outside of regular work hours. So, Kenneth, how do you see insurers responding to potential rules and regulations around remote work? And do you think these kinds of rules will help or hinder flexibility?
Well, I think, Abby, firstly, I don't think the insurers are any different from any other organization as we figure out what it is that we will do. No different from Accenture as we try to figure out what we do with this as well. I think that we recently spoke with our advisory board that has a breadth of senior executives from insurance organizations in different roles, operating roles, financial roles, agency and distribution roles. And the complexity of the situation is enormous. Right? Even before we get into new regulation or new issues that are being raised, at the very heart of it, there is a split between what managers express as their preference in terms of the balance of on-site and remote work versus what the employees do. Right? And so we've got managers citing, 80+% of managers looking for at least 3 days in the office. We've got about 25% of the workforce saying they want to be in the office 3 days or more. So it is that level of split between how the managers and the employees are looking at this. And the insurance companies and every other organization has to find a way to bridge that gap, and just internally within the organization. Then you strike all the issues of diversity and inclusion as it relates to saying, well, what rules are you going to set down? So in some ways, having enforced governmental regulation would make life a little bit easier because it could be a mandated answer. However, the nature of the work would actually be, it is so different by sector, by function, that I think just a broad brush set of regulation, it's hard to imagine that it would strike at the needs of what every different function or organization needs. So, when you're talking about a claims function in which time spent with customers, out at doing estimates and looking at cars and visiting body shops for auto claims, right? Nobody's ever been in the office. No one's likely to start coming into the office because those are fundamentally remote roles. And when it's been well established that all you do is waste time if you demand that those people come into the office to write their estimates. They should write them wherever they are. That's a fundamentally different thing when you start striking at, what are we going to do with, with data and analytics and the teams that are actually working with business partners to get to the right answers for those organizations. So I just think the breadth of work is such that there is going to be no simple peanut butter answer that gets spread across everything. I think there's enough complexity in the function and nature of work, compounded by equity issues when you say you want to demand one thing or the other, and then the fundamental preference difference between the managers of teams and their teams, that this is going to be a very tangled issue that I think is going to require fairly tailored solutions to be effective organization by organization.